First of all, I want to thank Benny for inviting me, and I want to congratulate all of you for having this, instead of a TED Talk, it's a Red Talk. So it's being recorded, and it's the first of a series, so hopefully it'll be well received among all of you, and then your family and friends. I want to thank all of you for being here. I know the main reason why you're here is because you're receiving 2 volunteer hours, and it's okay. But I will make it worth your while. And before I get started, you've all had a long day, and it is the end of the day. And we are going to meditate for 1 minute, okay? That just means we're going to breathe. So I will give you instructions first. You breathe in for 4, you hold your breath for 4, and then you exhale for 4. I will count and I'll give you instructions. And we're just going to do this for 1 minute. If you want to close your eyes, that's okay. If you want to keep them open, that's okay. Just sit straight in your chairs, especially your column. And you're going to breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. And as you breathe in and as you hold your breath, feel how you begin to relax. Whatever happened earlier today is gone. Whatever is going to happen after this talk is not here. So you are here right now. You cannot be anywhere else but here. And yes, your mind can go to other places, but we're going to try to keep your mind here. I hope you feel a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more present. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you who I am. Because why should you listen to me, right? Just because I have 2 graduate degrees and 4 books, that doesn't, no, you don't know, you don't know. So I'm going to tell you what my books are about and why I wrote them and my journey. And I want to make a special emphasis on who I was when I was a college student. Before I was a college student, I started writing when I was 15 years old because somebody gave me a journal. So I wrote every day for 10 years till I was 25. Once in a while, sometimes I would just read what I wrote. And it was so depressing that when I turned 25, I finally threw everything in the trash. And it was not worth your while or mine or anybody's. But I had the habit of writing every single day. And there were 2 gifts there. Number 1, at the end of the day, I had to remember the day. And trust me, that is a good thing to have, because having a good memory, I remember the day every day easily, and a lot of people my age don't. And some people your age don't either. So remembering your day is a good exercise. It gives you insight into who you are, what you're doing, and try to focus on what is meaningful to you. The other exercise, the other gift, is that when I sat down to write, I had to think about how I was going to express my experiences. So for example, right now, this experience, I am seeing it. I see you sitting in the chairs. I am standing here. But if I wrote about it, I wouldn't write, there were 80 chairs, and there were, I can count you, but I'm not going to count you right now, but I could count how many people were sitting here, and I could say it's Wednesday, September 6th, and I could say it's 6:13. That's not the point. When I write about my experience, I have to think about what I felt about my experience, what I thought about my experience. So if you write every day, those are 2 gifts that you will get. And then with time, you will have a lot of insight on who you are. Over time, it builds up, it adds up, okay? So anyways, I always wanted to be a writer. So I chose to study journalism communications. I have worked in radio, television, film. I didn't work in film, but I wrote a script and nothing happened to it, but I did write it. I have worked in public relations and radio, television, newspapers. When I worked as a reporter for a year, and everything was super fast, and then I just counted the days like a prisoner because it was so intense. And then I worked in an art museum. And then when I got to the art museum, I thought, all these people are depressed because everything was so slow. Anyways, after that, I had the opportunity of being a correspondent in Los Angeles, California for a Mexican news agency called Notimex. And that was even more intense because the difference between newspapers, so maybe you don't know, but news agencies feed everybody else. So the newspaper has all day. some sections close at 7 p.m., some sections close at 8, and the last one closes at 10:30 or 11. But it's just one day. It's a whole day. Radio and television, they have shows in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, but they usually repeat the information. So as the information comes in, they just include it in the next show. So if the information came at 4 p.m., it'll go in the evening news. They obviously want to make the evening news the most complete. And radio is like television, but now it's less and less important unless you think about podcasts, which are the same thing but different. And so there's all these new ways of calling media that is just transforming with new generations. When, after being a correspondent, I finally got my own column. I had my own column for 15 years. And that was very interesting. But at some point I thought, I am never going to be a writer if I keep doing this, because I was so busy writing about what was happening that I didn't really have time to write about other things. So at some point, I finally stopped writing. I finished with my column, and I started working on my first book, which is called Uproot. So I first started investigating my family, and I thought that that was what the book was going to be about. And then with time, I investigated some more, and then I had mentors. And one of my mentors said, a historian, said, all this historic stuff that you have, it's fabulous. And then I had another mentor who was a memoirist, and then he said, all this personal stuff is fabulous. The historic stuff, you can throw in the garbage. And the historian said the same thing about the personal stuff. And so eventually I had the right mentor who said, these are not two books, it's just one. But I needed to figure out a way in which I was going to put all those stories together. So it took me a long time, but I finally one day clicked, and I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 30 years in 30 chapters. And all this historic stuff, I will insert as I investigated it, so as part of my life. And I wrote the 30 years in 30 chapters in 30 weeks. And there is a reason for that. I will get into the first biggest challenge of my life, which is I have a child with autism. He's 20 years old. He's about your age. And it has been a huge challenge for me to be his parent, but it has been the biggest lesson and the biggest gift. And he's my teacher, and he has transformed me. So that was the first big challenge that came into my life. The second one was divorce. So when I found out, I had no idea, because that's just the way it goes, that there was someone else. When I found out that there was someone else, I sat down to write this book, and I wrote it in 30 weeks. I would write it from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. I would write 5 chapters from Monday to Friday, and then I would edit them on the weekends. And the reason why I had this drive, this incredible strength to tell this story, is because divorce, maybe some of you have divorced parents, maybe you don't, but maybe you have friends who have divorced parents, for sure, because there's a lot of people who are divorced. It's not an easy experience. It's a huge change, and there's a lot of things that need to be resettled and reorganized, because a life, as you know it, is being dismantled and is being transformed into another life, which can be very joyful. Both lives can be joyful, before and after. Anyway, so when I finally finished that book, the reason why I did it with such strength and determination is because I knew that things had ended in a different way. I felt this need, this existential need to defend my life. Because at that point I thought, my life, I love my life. And nobody gets to step on my life, and nobody gets to tell this story but me. So I wrote this book. And when I finished the book, I didn't like it. It was chronological and it was boring, and so I had to work on it. So the book was finished when I started my second graduate degree, which was in creative writing. And I read and read and read and read and read and read some more. For a summer class, in 1 month, I read 1,400 pages. And because I'm not your age, I really read the 1,400 pages because I was really happy to go back to school. So I really was committed to doing everything. And after reading all of that, I thought, I need to make this better, and I need to figure out a way in which I'm going to tell this story that's going to be interesting. It was an interesting story, but it's just flat. So what I did, I started thinking about other artistic forms, and then I came up with something that's called polyphony. Any music majors here? Okay. Can you tell us what polyphony is?
Not yet. I just started.
Okay. Well, It's super easy. Anybody knows the song Row, Row, Row Your Boat? Like everybody, right? Okay. Well, that's polyphony. So one voice comes in, and then the second voice comes in, and each voice will sing the same song, right? You've heard it, right? Okay. So that's what I did. I turned this 30 years into 3 stories. The first story is my 20s, like you. And that has to do with college. It has to do with my professional life. It has to do with me becoming a journalist. That's the main subject. Then my 30s are about getting married and having kids. And then my 30s are about that, and my 40s are about mainly being the parent of an autistic child. And so once I figured out that I was going to do that, then on top of that, I gave each story a different person. So the first story is told in the first person. That's me, I. The second story is told in the second person, and the third story is told in the third person. So I'm going to tell you what happens with that. The first person, right here, right now, is I am here, I'm standing in front of this microphone, I'm in Incarnate world looking at you, and that's me talking in real I, the real I. The second person is like a ghost, like a witness that's standing behind me, and it has a very mysterious effect. So I'm going to say it in the second person. You are standing in front of the microphone and you are looking at these people and you're telling them about your book. So it has this destiny flair. It just has this feeling of this is what's going to happen. It's very mysterious. It has this feeling of it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So that's the second person. And then the third person, it's she. She's standing at the podium, is talking to an audience, blah, blah, blah. So why did I do it in that way? I'm asked this, I'm always asked why I did it like this. And so the first person, you guys, I'm sorry, you are always thinking from you, from I. That's what we do when we were in our 20s. We are self-absorbed, we're trying to figure out who we are, we're trying to find our place in the world, and so it's all about me, and it's okay. You are supposed to build yourself an identity. That's what you're doing, and it's perfectly fine. I'm not criticizing. I did it, and everybody is going to do it. Great. Then the second person, because I told you that has this idea of this feeling of it's going to happen, it gives this sense of this was meant to be your life. And I love that about the second person. And I do feel that in my 30s, there was this voice that was telling me, this is your life. This is going to be your life. And so I wanted that person to be there. And the last one, which is the closest to who I am right now, it's the third person because the last one has a lot to do with autism and has to do with my divorce and has to do with a lot of things. And I didn't want it to be about me. I want it to be about anybody. So it's she, or she, or she, or she. It's her. It's someone. It doesn't matter if it's me or not. The other interesting thing about my book is that I changed everybody's name. And I will tell you briefly, have you read memoirs, anybody? Raise your hands. Who have you read any memoirs? No? Benny, he's read my book. Okay, memoirs are different from autobiographies. Autobiographies are historical, they're cold, they're factual, but a memoir is very confessional, it's very, very intimate and very private. And the thing that distinguishes the memoir is that there's a before and after. And so for me, the before and after was when I moved to the United States. And so the thread that puts all of those stories together is that I was uprooted from Mexico. Anybody from Mexico here? Okay, well, maybe you'll enjoy reading it. And so I was uprooted and then rerooted. Now I am an American, like for real. And my children speak English all the time, and I speak English a lot of the time. And so here I am talking about my life in English to Americans in an American university. So yes, I am an American now.